Greetings all, this is Glenn McKnight. This is a series of interviews that we're doing with, I guess you would say, the founders and operators of schools of internet governance. And who we have today is Satish Babu and Amrita Choudhury, both with insig, very prominent organization out of India. And so let me turn to you guys about, tell us a little bit about insig, its history, what achievements it's had, and some of the high points. So whoever wants to start first, go ahead.
Right. So thanks, Glenn. And it's absolutely, we're privileged to be here in this call with you. I am Satish and I am based out of India, and I'm one of the co-founders of insig, the India School on Internet Governance. Now, how it came about was a mix of planning and complete luck. So by 2015, we had, kind of laid the basic plans that we needed a school on internet governance in India. Being a very large country with a very large number of internet users and growing very fast, we thought it was important, although the ISOC chapters had not made absolute contact with each other, but Delhi chapter and my own home chapter, Trivandrum, we had kind of joined hands and we said we'll have a school. But when that school would happen was not kind of decided a priori. Then what happened was ICANN at one fine morning decided that they will shift from Puerto Rico to Hyderabad, the ICANN meeting.
What year was that? That was 2016?
2016, okay. Yes. So because of the Zika virus problem in Puerto Rico. And this was actually announced during the meeting at Copenhagen, I think. I'm not sure, but I'm trying to recollect. It was somewhere in Europe, Scandinavia, actually. And we then thought this is a great opportunity for us because all the ICANN, big wigs were coming down to India. And we had several months to plan. So we decided that we're going to grab this opportunity and, have organize the first India School on Internet Governance at Hyderabad just before the actual ICANN meeting. Now, the big issues were how to get official approval and how to get funding for this.
Right.
So the official approval actually happened during the ICANN meeting because we had an Indian delegation. And I went and met the leader of the delegation, who was the Secretary of IT, and explained during actually a party, saying that this is a very great opportunity for us and we have to grab this. And fortunately for us, he said, please go ahead. But ensure that you do it within reasonable, don't do it in a 5-star hotel, do it in an academic institution, do it quietly, etc. So we understand that the government of India was very wary about things like IGF because there's a very, kind of history to it, baggage. But because it is insig and it's school on internet governance, there was no resistance. We were given the go-ahead from the government. Then we got in touch with the ICANN, ISOC, etc. And then we arranged this whole thing with speakers from the ICANN community. So Glenn was there, as was many other people from the ICANN meeting. This is organized in the Indian Institute of Information Technology in Hyderabad, a 3-day program. And we had both board members of ICANN as well as the community members, and it went off very nicely. It was a great success because of the fact that we also had the formula in insig is that we have about 25 to 30 Indian fellows plus about 15 international fellows. And during this first insig, we had, again, because of the ICANN meeting and getting visas was not a problem for the ICANN meeting, several people who came from countries that otherwise would not be represented. For instance, Pakistan. We had people physically in India from Pakistan. Excuse me. And therefore, so this is the kind of first insig. Subsequently, there was a strategy behind it, but I'll stop here and let Amrita speak at this point.
Thank you, Satish. I think you have grabbed most of it. The idea was to build awareness, understanding amongst the community about the India School of Internet Governance, understanding internet governance, and having more people join these decision-making bodies or contribute, because we see very less contribution from the global south even today. So if we look at, we started then, and today is 2021. Till last year, we did have our school. So, and what has happened is it has been a progression. And why we say the school is unique is because it is not run by one organization. it is the different chapters. As Satish mentioned, it has been a journey. It started with Trivandrum and Delhi joining hands. Then we had ISOC Kolkata joining hands, Mumbai joining hands. Now we have ISOC Chennai and the newly formed ISOC Hyderabad. So it is a consortium which works, and they are volunteer based without any legal bindings. We are working together, and I think globally there are no such examples wherein different chapters who have different leadership, different ideals work together towards a common goal. And I think that's, I would say that is one of our achievements, that we've been able to establish something without any formal boundaries. And like Satish mentioned, that, each year we don't only look at the Indian students. We've been rotating the school in different cities. It started with Hyderabad, it went to Trivandrum, it came to Delhi, it went to Calcutta. Last year, due to COVID-19, it was held virtually online, but it was done by the Mumbai chapter. This year, we plan to have it in Chennai, but Satish would be speaking more on it. So we rotate it so that we have local people. Now, when we have the school, we not only have, fellows coming from all across India, at least 25 fellows. We also encourage local fellows, at least a minimum of 10, to be participating in the school. We also encourage, people from overseas to come and participate, which is about 15. So if I look at it in a ballpark way, Glenn, over the last 5-6 years, we have trained about 250 people who, I would not say all are contributing, but many of them are contributing quite significantly, not only in their national levels, in different varieties. It could be policy, it could be capacity building, it could be even technical discourses, and also some are participating in global discourses. And you would have seen even at BC, there have been many Indian alumni who have also undergone, the course at VSEG and are active even there. So I think those are certain achievements which I could think Satish can list a bit more, but I think we should stop here so that you can ask us more questions, and Satish can share about the plans also later.
Yeah, I'm very impressed with the since 2000 and from the inception of the idea in 2015-16 to where you are now, and the numbers are fantastic. The question that I need to ask you both: how is it different? Never mind the composition and the fact that you do move around, which is fantastic. What about the local issues that you guys face that are, whether it's internet shutdowns in Kashmir or some of the other issues in terms of government legislation on social media? What's the flavor that you guys bring? Amrita, please.
Yes, thank you, Glenn. So as Satish mentioned, we try to blend the program in such a way that we don't only discuss the global issues or introduce the I-Star platforms, but we bring the local issues and even at a sub-regional level discuss them. And we also look at, there are certain issues which are lingering and there are certain issues which are hot topic. So we try to blend them. So if we look at the curriculum, when we design it, we have international speakers, we have local speakers or national speakers, so that they can explain things. For example, if we look at last year, we had something like content moderation, which is being discussed a lot globally, but also in India because of a lot of content being taken down from social media, the liability of social media companies, because we are having the intermediary liabilities being discussed, or data protection, because India doesn't have a data protection bill. Many of the South Asian countries do not have, because we have a lot of people coming from rest of South Asia. Also discussing various nuances about access, the different kinds of access or the technical discussions. So looking at the issues, and we just don't have interactive discussions, we also have role plays so that people can understand to some extent what the issue is. When we are talking about gender, we try to bring in examples so that people do understand that gender is, for example, not limited to just women or the others discussing. It is the men in the room who also needs to discuss, or gender discrimination happens in different ways. So we try to see, it's not possible to teach everything in one go, but we try to give them some flavor so that later on, whatever issues they find interesting, they can take it back. And for that, we've also, as we realize the 3 days or 4 days is very limited, we've also created an alumni mailing list. We have an alumni WhatsApp and even Signal group where we can share information, or even the alumni over the years join and they can share more information, exchange notes, so that they are connected. If they have any issues, they know, and we also can share about opportunities. Satish, if you would like to add a bit more to it, please do.
Yeah, so going on from there, Glenn was mentioning about the unique aspects of insig. What is this insig model and how is it different from generally other schools of internet governance? So I would say that innovations in insig have happened at the operational, at the tactical and strategic level. Now we have had operational innovations. Amrita mentioned the way these sessions are structured, the interactiveness and the way these sessions are designed, the combination of local versus, the global versus regional versus local kind of issues being discussed. So those are kind of innovations that we have decided on ourselves. But at the same time, there is an overarching strategic objective that in India, the civil society was very weak when we started off. There's hardly any active, first of all, the internet chapters were kind of on their own. They're not kind of connecting and they're not kind of working collaboratively. So the leadership model is unique because we have a joint ownership of the program. The brand is owned by all the chapters of ISOC. That's number one. Number two, there is leadership continuity. Because it's a group, there's always continuity. People may get elected in a chapter. They may leave, somebody else might join, but the group still remains a group. So that continuity is very important. Otherwise, in many other situations, people are wondering, who will do the next version of the SIG. So we don't have that problem because it's the same group is behind all this. But even more important, how does one ensure that civil society has a footing to negotiate with the government? Now, you mentioned, Glenn, that we have the highest number, and it's not easy to negotiate with the government. The problem with dealing with the government is that say, okay, this is all national interest. Now, we have to balance national interest with, say, the public interest. So now how do we do this? Because otherwise, it becomes very hard to negotiate. So the way we have done it is systematically, step by step, we have built up this brand and the platform. So the platform now includes Youth IGF. Now remember, by around 2012-13 period, the government of India had killed off India IGF because of some problems there. And the government was completely shut off to the idea of reviving IGF. But for us, reviving IGF was one of our strategic objectives. But we couldn't do it immediately. So we said, we'll start slowly. We'll start with insig. We will bring on Youth IGF. We also brought in Martin Bottomann's GFC, the Global Forum for Cyber Expertise. They were working with us. We had this Day Zero programs. So we were, over this 5-year period, building up at a tactical and strategic level our own credibility as civil society, and it's actually multi-stakeholder kind of a model in order to be able to engage with the government. So 5 years later, today we are talking to the government of India about IGF. So Amrita has taken the initiative in that, and we are now talking to the government. And this is a kind of not completely unplanned. It is planned, but of course when we started off, we didn't have any idea of how long it's going to take and where we're going to reach. But we have actually made a kind of a clear progression in that, and it is not just a matter of creating a community of trained manpower who can participate, who can project India's voice and the region's voice into the international processes. That is very important. It's one of the direct outcomes of this whole thing. But there are also less visible outcomes which are happening in the background. So I'll stop here.
Yeah, and just to add another thing, what we are trying to do is, capacity building at different levels is required. So whatever is being discussed in, the insig, Glenn, you've been part to it, is we are having all these sessions being rapporteured by the, participants, and we are compiling it into a summary note, which we are also sharing with all the community people, including the government, to see what are the discussion happening, what are the outcomes which, people are, what are the sense, so that even they understand the diversity of views or what are the common consensus points which are coming, which I feel may be helpful for people to understand, to make nuanced decision.
Now, thank you both on that. One of the things I noticed when I attended your meetings, that it also had other events going on at the same time, or sorry, prior to or or synchronize with. So when people came to the event, they were able to also link into the other sessions. So that seems to be something that you commonly do. Can you talk about those partnerships and what other type of training that is offered to your students?
Right.
Yes.
So yeah, Amrita, go ahead.
No, you can go ahead.
All right. So basically, there are two distinct kind of networking that happens. One is we have been having day zero events, and day zero basically is something that insig directly organizes, and these have been in the past the Youth IGF India and the GFC III workshops.
Okay.
So the GFC workshops basically enhance trust in the internet, whether it's email or the web or whatever else. And the Youth IGF is to create a feeder stream from the young people into the internet governance processes. So the insig itself is for not for youth people, I mean youth, whereas the youth is specialized specifically for the youth, and therefore they create their own kind of program, and hopefully that will feed on into the internet governance process. So those are the two that we are directly organizing. But there are also the host chapters in various places. They have, like 2019 in Kolkata, they had a whole internet week that they were celebrating, and there were a number of activities that they were organizing together with insig as the high point. So we are flexible on this, and depending on where we are, what is the local interest, we can take up similar activities.
Amrita, did you want to add to that?
No, I think I echo what Satish says, that we try to blend depending upon the interest, depending upon what more we can add in terms of value to get more people into the different digital policy aspects or technical aspects. So we are pretty flexible in this, because our objective is to build capacity, and which complements one another.
Let me ask you both about a concept. One is accreditation with a university or institution. And the second question is there any plans aggregating the speakers and producing a book of the proceedings? So those are two ideas I'm going to throw at you. Have you considered those, or it's something in the future?
Actually, Glenn, at this point of time, being honest in both the questions, from my perspective, we've not thought of, Satish may have some other points, but I don't think we've thought of accreditation at this point of time. But your idea of compiling what all has been, the speakers have said, into a book is good. But what we've done is all the, over the years, even you have, been part of it, of our journey, the sessions have been recorded. Those recordings are there in YouTube. So we have it there. We've not formally thought of structuring and compiling them just like VSIG is doing. Because for us, we have other issues I think you would be discussing on the challenges which we see or what we plan. So I think that's when we could speak about it. But Satish, do you have anything? Because at this point of time, I don't think we've discussed on accreditation and other things.
Just that what we've done so far is that we have recorded, and Glenn knows it very well because he did the recording himself, of all the sessions, and all those are up on YouTube. So this is a reference for anyone who would like to kind of use them. Beyond that, now we must realize that insig is a very low budget kind of operation. It's a volunteer driven operation. We don't have any funds left over for secretarial or editing kind of work. So it is actually hard for us. I mean, all of us have our own day jobs, to kind of compile this into a book, although it's a very good thing to do. In terms of accreditation, we haven't started that discussion yet, because we have to see, we have to consult our community, and we have to see whether there's value in it, or is it simpler to kind of join hands with someone else who's in this process, and kind of we can feed into that process. There are probably options like that wherein we don't have to do the heavy lifting as far as accreditation is concerned. Okay,
great, thank you. Because I've seen in the IGFs in different countries that it's affiliated and they have a permanent location with that institution. So for example, George Washington University in the summer is not that active, so the rooms are available. So the IGF USA has in the past been at that location, and that's sort of a working relationship, and the university students are working through that program. So let's turn to what Amrita is keeping me on target on. Is we have two more things to talk about: the challenges that you guys have faced, and looking forward to this year and next year on what your plans are. So let's talk about challenges.
Yeah, so Glenn, what I would like to highlight in terms of challenges, what we see as challenges today in the times to come. For example, one of the main things which Satish mentioned briefly is that we are volunteer-based, consortium, and we rely on, people who are sponsors, for example. Now, when we talk about sponsors, the National Internet Exchange of India, NIXI, has sponsored us all these years. We've had Facebook sponsoring Google at one point of time. We've had, APASA, which is the ICANN.Asia, APNIC, funding us. Apart from having people participating as speakers, we had Internet Society funding us. Unfortunately, we have a challenge, though we are ISOC chapters, we have a funding challenge in India. And unfortunately, that has not been resolved. And the sad part is, though we say it is the ISOC chapters who are arranging it, we really have a hard time to get funds from Internet Society. Rather, I think we will not be getting funds. So it is a shame that, a solution is not being found, because chapters can't get all the solutions. It is, big organizations like ISOC need to do that. So funding is definitely an issue for us. Apart from it, we are volunteers. We are trying to maintain continuity, but there may be volunteer burnouts, especially with the COVID-19 situation and other things. The other issue is, we have trained the alumni, but how do we help them transition to the next level? As in, they are trained, they are participating, but if they want more help, how do we help them at the next level is something which is a question which we are looking at, that perhaps should we have more sessions, or what could we do to help them? The other would be, the challenges with the online sessions. For example, you can't have too much of sessions. You have to have limited modules. People do not have, and these sessions, when we have the 3 days or 4 days, when people are there on site, they can network. There is a human bonding which happens, which they take back. Those things get reduced. And so if we are reducing the number of hours or days in the online session, how do we add value to these people? What do they take back? How do we make it sticky for them to be retained or engaged? So those are certain things which we are looking at. And these, I think, are some of the challenges. There may be many, but presently these are certain things which are things which seems to be things which we need to grapple in some way or the other.
Okay. Satish, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, just that, when you look at schools on internet governance, there are some challenges which are common to all schools. One, for instance, is what is the real, not output, but outcome of this whole exercise? You may have produced n number of, alumni from your school, but what is the difference that they collectively make? It's a hard question. We have not done an assessment. We have informal, anecdotal information on how it is. So we can't claim to be, perfect. Individually, many of our alumni have done very well. And if you ask the question, what if we suddenly stop the India School on Internet Governance? What is likely to happen? The thing is that I believe that the school is important because it offers a continuing environment for people to come together, to work together collaboratively, and to engage with multiple actors, from the local government to the national government to the international internet governance process and so on. So that challenge is one which is common to all internet SIGs actually. But there are some India-specific challenges. One is that, for instance, we have multiple languages and scripts, but the school is always in English. It is not a significant challenge, but it has been highlighted as an entry barrier for some kind of people. It is true, but in India, the link language is English, so it is not all that much of a problem as people might think. Another problem is India is huge, and what is the point in doing 30 or 40 or 50 fellows in a year? Given the size of India, even given the size of the states, and what is the kind of impact this is going to make? So this is again not a straightforward question, because the impact is kind of asymmetrical. There are a few people who can make a lot of impact. There may be others who make less impact. So this is one thing. Thirdly, the India school doesn't have a permanent infrastructure, or we are a completely virtual kind of a thing. We come together when we have a work to do, and we kind of dismantle everything. If you look at our website, that's just about the only thing that is continuous. It kind of has everything. So if we have to do better than this, then there was at one point earlier, maybe 2016-17 period, when there was a discussion on should we become a part of some existing institution as a department of that institution, and then work with them. And maybe you can even think of, there are institutions like the National Institute of Smart Governance. Although it is not internet governance, it is smart governance, which is actually e-governance. So there was a discussion whether we can, kind of become a, part of that group. But what we have found is that this group, that is the ISOC chapter's leaders, are fiercely independent, and they would not like to be controlled in terms of the agenda by anybody. And fortunately for us, the NIXI, that is the government of India, has never ever interfered with what we're trying to do, which is a very positive thing. Because we would have had significant difficulty if they had tried to decide what our topic should be and so on. But that has not been a problem. And we are very grateful to NIXI and the government of India for that, and for supporting us. But these are some of our limitations. I think these are our major limitations. There would be other things, like in comparison with other schools, there are certain things that we can, for instance, what can we do for our fellows in terms of putting them in touch with the opportunities that exist? Well, we do try, but since we don't have a permanent secretariat, that work is not automatic and ongoing. So if you had a secretariat, then maybe we could have ensured that any opportunity that cropped up anywhere, our alumni would have come to know of these things. So that's in the future. Maybe we can build up on this.
Okay, great. These are reasonable challenges, instead of just dwelling on that, let's turn to the last issue. 2021, the pandemic is still an issue currently, and now it's May 25th, 2021. We have some horrible numbers that coming out in terms of parts of India. So you're saying that Chennai might be the location. Would that be a virtual location, or would it be face-to-face?
Well, as of now, we have, the decision is open. We were hoping for a hybrid version where a small group could meet in a physical location under the Chennai chapter. And there could be a larger community which is connecting from on the internet. There are significant challenges, but fortunately for us, as opposed to some other schools, time zone is not going to be one of them, because we are all in India. So, but the number of hours you can spend in terms of Zoom sessions is limited compared to a physical session. So even if you have a hybrid thing, the problem is that the people in the physical location will have much longer hours than people are joining on the internet. So this has got to be balanced. Finally, whether even that physical thing, that hybrid thing will work, will depend on what is the status of COVID. At this point, we are very slow in vaccination. Actually, not very slow. We have done pretty well, but some 193 million vaccinations have been given as of yesterday. Okay. But still, it is nowhere near the size of India. So it is hard to predict at this point. We would like a hybrid version for 2021, but we are not sure whether this is going to happen.
Okay.
Amrita?
Amrita, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, as in we still have a call end of this week to actually discuss it. But firstly, we were beginning of the year, we were thinking it would be at least a physical one. Then we came to a hybrid model.
Yeah.
I personally don't think even a hybrid would happen, looking at the way things are, because though there were, the Chennai chapter was speaking to a college, etc., to do it in their location, but I don't think we would be taking that risk, because um, even if we have it somewhere in October or September, we really don't know how the virus is going to work in different places. And as Satish mentioned, the vaccination drive is very aggressive at this point of time in India, but our population is also huge. So, even though the numbers look great, but it's minuscule.
Right, right. Well, I think we've covered pretty well everything. Is there any final comments that either of you want to say?
Yes, I'd like to ask you, Glenn, because you've been part of insig too while you are wearing your VSig hat, to add your experience, because you've been part of our journey for so long. So wear your insig hat and speak.
Okay, I've been involved with the African school, the Southern school, North American school. So I've had an opportunity to compare, and the Indian school has more vitality and more fun. Your parties are great, even though there isn't any alcohol at the party, but we managed to still have a lot of fun. People just as soon as the music starts, everybody's dancing. So, which is fantastic. And the food is fantastic. So given your budgets, you guys do remarkable effort and production. The panels are great. The partners you've established for your locations have worked out very, very well. And you're doing it on a shoestring. In terms of budget comparisons, you guys have done remarkable stuff with very, very little money. And you can't sustain that, to be honest, because eventually people get burnt out and beyond Chennai. And if this situation continues, it's going to be tough for you guys. In the case of North America, we just stopped. We didn't do our Washington event that we were supposed to last year, and the one in Seattle we're not doing as well this year. So you won't see another North American school till the ICANN San Juan meeting in March of 2022. So one has to adapt, but I think you guys have a great team. It's not just the two of you. I've worked with the entire team and great volunteers. As I said, you've had a range of people. Some of the panels have had people that represent a wide spectrum of view, which is great, because I think that, as they call in English, the fisticuffs, where people actually don't necessarily agree, but they're polite in terms of, but there's a little bit of tension, which is creative tension, because it's a back and forth. And I think your interactive sessions with Sammy of APNEC, where they have to trace packets, fantastic. You guys implemented Kahoot in online gaming. All of stuff is really quite good. And again, I have to say it again, you've done it with virtually no money, which is a miracle. And I don't think many groups would do that. And if they didn't have enough funds, they would say, forget it, we're going to pull the plug. But I think you've really leaned on your partners, and I think it shows the passion that you guys have done. I think even if you do move on, I think other people can learn from your lessons.
Thank you, Glenn. And for those who do not know, we do not charge a single penny from our fellows. We do not, many places you have paid fellows, but we don't have that kind of an option yet, because we are a developing, emerging nation, so we want to encourage people to participate. So just so that people who are listening to it know, we take it for granted, but not many around the globe would know about it. just to add. But thank you, Glenn, for your kind words. We want the discussions to be diverse because internet governance and the digital policy space has diverse views. So people should hear the diverse views and then try to take a more nuanced or balanced discussion. That's how we look at it.
All I can say about Satish, I had to do the presentation on blockchain for good. And so I had a fantastic slideshow. I was ready. And so went up there and he said, we're running late because, as you know, in India, everybody likes to talk. And the question period went longer. He said, and this was a half-hour presentation. And he says to me, you got 5 minutes.
Yeah,
That was
so
5 Indian minutes. Okay, so that was 5 Indian minutes.
Yeah.
So in closing, I would like to say that as you just saw, there was a thunderstorm and there's a power failure here. So we are still, grappling with infrastructure. It is not as if we have become very advanced and all that. We have about 750 million internet users as of now, and that number is going to inch closer to. It's growing very fast. So it's important that India has a coherent internet governance policy, even internally. It's not just engaging with ICANN and ISOC and so on, but also within the country we need some platform where we can discuss these things. We can have if the IGF is coming up, that's the best platform. No two ways about it. But even otherwise, insig is the place where now IGF would have some restrictions, and because of the sessions and everything is organized very structured manner. But insig is a free venue. They can speak. People can come and present their opinions, learn from each other, and go back. And hopefully that process will eventually result in a more coherent internet governance perspective for India. So insig that way is extremely important for us.
Yes, and our partners have been very supportive, starting from the government to NICSI,
Right.
all the funders, APNIC, ICANN, ISOC without the funding part, and Asia and others. All of them have, they have not intervened in the steering or the organizing or even in the program part, and we've been pretty independent about how we run it. So that's one good thing.
Great. Well, I think this is quite valuable because I will be sharing this with the IGF participants, but more importantly is the other new schools can learn from your best practice. That's one of the reasons why we did this extended interview, is that people can connect with you, and if you can provide your email and if you agree that they can connect, we should be doing a session at the DC Coalition of Schools of Internet Governance at the IGF Krakow. So this will be a resource, and hopefully you guys can participate with that session as well, but in a very much briefer versions. But those who really want to know and get into the thick of it, this video will be made available.
Thank you, Glenn. You can share our email IDs. Happy to help anyone, but thank you for having us for such an extended conversation.
Great, thank you. I'm just going to stop the recording. Thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you, and bye.